Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Winthrop and the World. I'm Paul Baskin, and with us today we have Gus Martucci. Gus is a member of the school committee here in town. Gus has been active in civic affairs in Winthrop for quite a while, and especially on the school board. What, 20 years or so, off and on?
20 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the big news, obviously, at the moment is the school override. As folks may know, there's a law in Massachusetts called Proposition 2.5, and it requires every town to not raise taxes more than 2.5% a year. And when the town feels a need to do that, then they have to get a vote from the town's people to agree to that. And that's what Winthrop's trying to do right now, because there's a sense that the schools in town need more money than they currently can manage. And they asked in the November election for a $4.9 million override, and that was rejected by the town's voters. So there's now plans for, I guess, another vote in probably sometime in March, maybe, that will ask whether no override, whether another 4.9 million request, or a middle figure of about 3.4 million. Is that right?
3.5. Yeah.
3.5.
Yep.
So maybe I take it you're in favor of this override.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, with the 2.5, like you brought up, the 2.5% cap that's on the to raise your tax levy, expenses go up more than that. Just health insurance alone,
Right.
last year went up, I think, 9%.
Right.
So, and that's just one of our items that we have.
Right.
And there's many line items in the school budget. But yeah, so we're looking for 4.9. It's 3.5, so that there's no reductions in staff services.
Okay.
And then we're going to put a 1.495 million dollars into a stabilization account,
Right.
so that we don't have to go back to the voters next year or
Right.
the year after. We hopefully can make that work for at least 5 years.
So the 1.4 million in reserve, that's if the town gets the 3.5
No,
level?
that's at the 4.9.
So if the 4.9, then there's don't make too confused. So 4.9 would be a total, and then some smaller portion of that would be put in reserve. The rest of it would be sort of go to the annual budget.
Correct.
And if they go to the lower number, is there also a reserve in that, or would that just wipe out the reserve idea?
It's going to put, I think, 100,000 into the reserve. That's very minimal amount, kind of just to open the account. We don't have, right now, we don't have what they call a stabilization.
Right.
The town has several different stabilization accounts that they put a percentage of free cash in. So when they certify their free cash, they are going to put a certain 10% into the capital improvement,
Yeah.
and different. They have 4 or 5 different stabilization accounts that they utilize. We don't have one.
Is this what people might call a rainy day fund?
Rainy day fund, to do things that you're going to project that you need to do down the road, maybe in a year or two.
Right.
For the town. But for the schools, it would be probably just more of subsidizing the budget for the next 5 years, instead of saying, okay, we need 3.5 million, but in next year or the year after, we're going to be coming back at you again.
Right.
And saying, and hopefully we can get that to work, more, to be a longer period of time.
Right.
Because we don't want to have overrides every year. We just don't want that. It's been 15 years since the last one.
Right. Yeah, it's made clear that what over time, these kinds of overrides are just necessary over time, because the 2.5 is, as you sort of said, it's not enough. So every once in a while you have to do it, and this has been quite a while in Winthrop since we've had one.
Yep.
What then do you see as the reason why the town voters rejected the idea in the November ballot?
I really don't know. It's just, I think some people are saying that they just didn't know enough about it. There's some people that are saying they knew all about it but didn't want to do it. There's some people that really just can't afford it.
Right.
And we understand that. I know I do. And then there's people that are concerned about the middle school, the old middle school building
Right.
that's been just sitting there for the last 9 years.
Right.
When it could be utilized for something. I would like to see it being utilized to generate money for the town.
Right.
But right now, it's probably costing us a few bucks to run that building.
Right.
At minimal amounts, just so that the pipes don't burst.
Right. Right. So that could possibly be a source of money if that building is sold or made into something different.
Oh, absolutely. I feel that they can generate some good revenue out of that for the town.
Is there a sense that the town's voters, or maybe it was justified then for them to say, well, okay, hold on, let's see what you do with the middle school building, and maybe answer some other questions before we vote for that?
I don't know. I wouldn't say it's justified. I'm not sure, what's in their minds. But certainly, I would say that it's a concern that they should be, brought up. And it has been. The council right now is divided. There's some,
The town council, you
the
say?
town council
Yes.
is divided. They don't, they're not agreeing on what to do with that piece of property.
Right.
And they've just recently put out for the fire station
Right.
a survey of where the voters, where they wanted to put it. And one of the places was Walden Street, and that's the one that I think got the most support
Right.
in that survey.
And is that the middle school location as well?
No.
And what's the tie-in then on the location?
Just,
Or if any? Yeah.
no, it's just another location, because where they wanted it, the Wadsworth up on Winthrop Street,
Right.
that didn't work out.
Right.
They voted that down, so now they wanted to say, is there any other place in town we'd like to see that?
And is that, the fire station is maybe also going to be on the same ballot coming up in roughly March?
I would lean more towards that. I mean, I would like to see the schools by itself, but this is one town, and we need to be together on everything, I feel. And I think that they're going to put, it's $20,000 to have an election, to have a special election.
Right.
You know, so if you do 20, you know, you start to add up, and I don't like to do that. I want to make sure that the money's spent the right way, and I feel as though it's probably going to be voted that it'll be both in the same ballot. It'll be
Yeah.
the fire station and the schools.
So yeah, you're talking about so $20,000 it just cost the town to stage an election.
Correct.
But as far as maybe the idea that maybe the townspeople might want to see kind of a big picture sense of, okay, school, fire department, there's other costs coming up for flood mitigation.
Yep.
And maybe other, maybe sewer pipes, I think, has maybe
Yep.
been talked about
Yep.
too. But just everything, is it possible that we kind of need to give the townspeople a kind of an overall picture of what the financial health of the town is and what sort of collectively needs to be done, and then answer that together? Or is it, or do you think it's possible to sort of do these kind of individually?
I mean, I'd like to see more on the menu. I would have liked to have seen that. I've talked to several people from the town about that. And like I said, I'd like to see more menu items, because
Right.
there are other things that need to be done in town. I mean, you mentioned water. I mean, we have water mains that need work, and you know, one of the reasons why our water bills are high is because we have a lot of leaks
Right.
in town. That's an old infrastructure. So something like that would be nice to see on the ballot too,
Right.
to give the people more of an opportunity to say, you know, we want to fix some stuff, you know.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so I mean, you're on the school committee, but I mean, but everything plays into each other. So I'm just wondering the degree you have a comfort level with the fact that the town kind of knows how the pieces are all going to fit together in a sort of
Yeah,
cohesive
yeah.
budgetary sense, and whether this is whether the townspeople need to wonder, okay, we're going to vote for the school budget now, and then maybe, you know, in 6 months, a year, they're going to ask for this and that and the other thing. Do you feel like you can honestly say to the people of town, this is kind of what the big picture costs are that you're facing, and this is what you should know going into this?
I would like to see that. I spent 4 years on the town's finance commission,
Mm-hmm.
and we look at the total budget of the town, not just the schools.
Right.
When I was off the school committee for a little while.
Right.
And yeah, I feel as though there's a lot of things in town need to be addressed. We had an override 15 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and on that override, there was a menu of, I'm going to say 6 or 7 different items.
Right.
And police, fire, DPW, schools,
Right.
Parks and Rec, they were all on there.
Right.
So-
Do you think that approach was a
It-
model then, maybe to look at?
Everything passed.
Everything passed,
Everything
okay.
passed. So it could be another way to go with this, but right now, the town does not feel as though they need to do that.
Right.
So,
And again, you mentioned about some of the reasons why people might have voted against this the first time back in November, which is the cost. And I think the estimates were, what, $700 or $800 a year per average house in Winthrop?
what they did was, yeah, they took the average home, which I think is, if I remember correctly, is $689,000 was the average priced home in Winthrop.
Mm-hmm.
At that level, you're at $900 a year.
900, an additional if you voted
Correct.
for the
If you- the full
4.9
amount, right.
million.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so there would be a percentage of that for the mid level.
Correct.
Why is that? Okay, so if you're a resident of Winthrop and you have a child in the school, it's what, an average of $18,000, I think you're saying?
It's around $18,000 that they're spending on per pupil expenditure, yeah.
So that's a good deal if you have a child. You have $900 more and you're getting $18,000 in benefit for your child, a great deal. What about people in town who don't have a child? What's the argument to be making to them as to why it's in the overall best interest of the town to have a strong school system?
Well, first of all, you know, you have parents of school-age kids that you know that I'm sure they're going to want to have the best they can have for their kids.
Right.
And that means they're going to vote, you know, in the positive for this override. Then you have people that are older, that don't have any kids in the school, And, I've talked to them, and I've said to them, first of all, if you want to think about yourself, you talk about your home values.
Right.
If the schools are not being run right and dilapidated and not, good, then your property values could go down.
Right.
But what you really have to ask yourself is that someone did it for you. And when you were in school, or when I was in school, and when the people that have no kids in the school system were out there, even if they don't have any kids, someone did it for them when they were in school. Someone did it for their kids when they were in school. So I really feel as though people got to come together. That's the community part of it.
Right.
Is people got to come together and look at it that way. So
that's an altruistic argument. I can see it being a good one. But aren't there other, even if you're just looking at it from a what's in it for me kind of thing? You mentioned property values because your own home, if you're assuming you own a home in town, that could help. What others? I think I've seen crime being there's studies connecting crime to school quality.
Not so much crime. We have a great. The town is, to me. I've been here my whole life. It's a great place. Crime is very low, thank God. But in the meantime, if kids are out and about and not in school, not extracurricular activities and after-school programs, then they're going to be getting into some mischief. Probably you're not going to be having a good time with the kids being around.
Right.
So you need to make sure the kids have these extracurricular things to do, and I think that's all part of the extra money for the schools.
Right. We do hear talk, is obviously the 3A debate in town is a big one.
Well, it is for the schools. You're bringing people in and you're hoping that they don't have any kids, and they're, singles and people that are, together married or whatever, and then they're going to just go to work and just come here and sleep and eat and whatever. But
Right.
the problem with that is that you have to have more housing. This
Yeah.
town right now, to me, is very, very, very congested.
Congested of people or cars? Or
Both.
both?
Everything. Cars, people, homes. You tell people how close these houses are that live in rural areas.
Right.
They say, you're crazy, how can you live there, But,
Right.
I think it's fantastic. I love it, but we can't, I think putting more pressure on the infrastructure, the traffic, is going to be tough for us.
Right.
So I'm not sure, I know what's going to happen. Things have to, progress, and we need more money.
Right.
So that we need to grow that way,
Right.
as far as revenue goes, but.
So is it a good strategy for the town to do things that try to encourage people to move to Winthrop without children?
I don't know. If it's a great strategy, I don't know I don't know if that's possible though.
It's a great strategy. So
Yeah, that's fine. But there's always going to be people that may change their mind when they're here and want to have a family.
Right.
And then I just don't know how you would market. I shouldn't say that. I don't really know. I don't know too much about the real estate business.
So what about the fact that if you go by the Winthrop High School and Middle School complex together, it looks beautiful not only from the outside. You go inside, it's at least the areas where you can see. Does that make it actually harder to sell to people the idea that the schools are in such crisis if they go to the flagship building school building in town, look at it and say, wow, it looks great?
No, I don't think that bad. We had to have which we're still paying for. We had to have a debt exclusion for the schools, which the taxpayers still pay for.
Right.
They agreed to it. They voted for it, and that's great.
Right.
But no, I don't think that would have any influence on that.
You haven't been hearing people say
No.
that as a reason to vote against the
No.
override.
I think that's more of a reason for people to move here.
The reason people move here. Okay.
Okay, because you're looking at really, the oldest building is the Gorman, which is I think 20 or 22.
Right.
Then there's the Cummings. Then there's the middle high school.
Right.
But they're all relatively new buildings.
Right.
And of course the high school's brand new, almost brand new. So it's a great, when people are looking to have a family, they're going to look maybe to a place close to Boston like this, and
Yeah.
a place with brand new schools. And I think to me,
Yeah.
and I've said this a million times, over my 20 years being here on the school committee, that we have a great school system. We have you cannot get a better education anywhere else, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
When I walk into that school every spring, into the high school, and I look at those letters of acceptance
Right.
that are hanging.
To colleges you're talking about.
Yep, that are hanging that are plastered all over the foyer of that front foyer of that building.
Right.
They go everywhere.
What does the data tell us about the performance of our school system here in Winthrop compared to others in the greater Boston area? Are we in the middle of the pack? Are we above or below? Or what do you
No,
understand?
I'm pretty sure we're in the average on a lot of things. We may be below on some and above on others.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you can. I don't measure. I've never measured it that way. I mean, to me, data's sometimes a little sketchy to me. And what I do is, like I said, I know that if, and I say Harvard because Harvard's always like the benchmark of further education. We've had many kids go to Harvard. We've had many kids get accepted to Harvard and not be able to go to Harvard because they couldn't afford to go.
Right.
But I look at that and I say, Harvard has a certain criteria that you have to meet to get into that school,
Right.
like any other school.
Right.
It means to me that Winthrop provides that curriculum instruction and assessment
Right.
for that child to be able to go there.
Right.
So if they want to really go there, they
Right.
can go there.
Yeah.
Whereas there's other school systems that don't provide that curriculum instruction and assessment to be able to meet the criteria of Harvard or whatever school that you're thinking of going to.
Okay, so again, not to make the case one way or the other, but if I look around town, I see a beautiful brand new school building, and you're saying that they're relatively modern, and you're saying that the instruction is pretty high up. Then where's the argument for an override?
Well, we always want to do better. We always
Yeah.
want to improve.
Okay,
So there are some things that we don't have
right. Okay.
that we need to do.
Tell us.
There are some things that, well, there's some AP. If you want to know,
Sure.
there's some AP. We could have more AP courses.
Okay.
We could have.
We should say AP for advanced placement. Those
It's
are
correct, yeah,
those are
sorry,
courses
yeah.
for children, students in the high school level, advanced courses that sort of set you up for a college career.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, like and I'll give you another, for instance, right now we're charging $250 per athlete to participate in sports.
You're charging, say again,
$250 per athlete,
per year,
per year per athlete. No, I should say per year, per sport.
per sport, per year.
So if you have a child in school
Yeah.
and they play 3 sports, you're going to be paying $750.
That's the current situation, or you're saying what'll happen if we don't get the override?
No, that's current situation.
That's current situation.
So something like that, where it could be free. We'd like, when I played sports and we never paid. My
Right.
parents never paid.
And if the override doesn't happen, I think we were hearing that that's one of the areas that could change.
Could increase, yeah.
Yeah, so that could increase.
Yep.
We could see smaller class sizes. We could see, I'm just going through the list,
Yep.
I think, of what I thought the school department put out,
Yep.
which is smaller class sizes, maybe
Yep.
cutting some courses.
Yep.
What would that look like from your mind? Do you think those would be kind of inconveniences, or are they really serious issues?
So you're assuming that nothing passes?
I'm asking, yeah.
Okay. No, I'm just saying. I don't
Yes,
know.
asking if the town again votes it down.
Votes it down, yep.
Yes,
I think you're going to see some staff reduction, and there may be some program reduction. There may be some supply lines that aren't filled, and may have to go to the parents and say, we need to, have a $20, throw in the
Just various
go to
fee-
the teacher and say, what can I do for you? Because it's happened before.
I'm sorry, so what I can do for the teacher, you mean like?
So like paper, pencils,
Okay, I see.
pens.
So asking parents to voluntarily contribute to supplies.
Correct. Yep, that's because
Things like
that's
that
happens. And your child will come home and say, we didn't have enough paper today. We didn't have enough. So then that would be something that you'd say, the parents would say, okay, what can I do?
Right,
But it's things, and that's when I talk about supplies and stuff like that.
right. No, so I mean, and I've been in a school district in the past, not Winthrop, elsewhere, where the parents contributed huge amounts of money to, and effectively paid for another teacher in in each classroom.
yeah.
Are we looking at potentially moving into that kind of a model in this town?
I don't think so. No, I'm hoping that this override passes, and I think that if it does, then we should be fine. We should be able to maintain. If the 4.9 passes, I think we'll be good for at least 5 years, probably longer. We have to take into consideration budgeting is very, very difficult. You can say that you need $100,000 for this at the beginning of the year, and you really only needed $50,000. You could say you needed $100,000 for this at the beginning of the year, but you needed $150,000 because things change, things for whatever reasons, and there's many different variables that happen during the school year that can come in. A child could come in from out of town.
Right.
That could be an additional expense.
Right.
That's not foreseen. There could be different mandates that happen that you have to fund from the state. and they could do that mid-year. You don't know.
Right, right. Oh,
So
sure.
stuff like that could happen. But no, I think if we get the 4.9, and I've always said myself that I feel as though I look at the glass is always half full. State revenue, town revenue hopefully is up, and they're able to provide more money to the schools through the town, through the state. Chapter 70 money, and then of course the town is an appropriation for the school department.
Right.
And with local receipts in the town's budget, fluctuate. But new cars being bought, excise taxes, any money that you get from permitting for building new buildings or new apartments or whatever. That's all part of that. The local receipts, and if that comes out to be more, then we do better.
Yeah, you mentioned state funding, and it reminds me. So both on the town gets some money. All school systems do get some money from the state and from the federal level. But we know that in this town in particular, with the 3A battle, is a potential situation where we get less state money. And at the federal level, we know that the new administration is talking about even cutting out the Department of Ed. How concerned are you that changes involving the state government and the federal government coming up will make the situation in Winthrop even worse for its school system?
Well, as far as the 3A goes, I'm not concerned at all, only because we've gotten very, very little money
Okay.
from those grants that you're able to get by complying with that. So I'm not concerned about that at all. As far as the federal and state money goes, the state of Massachusetts is doing better. Their receipts are up. So their receipts being up, then there's more money in the pot for Chapter 70.
Okay.
We have a great state rep in Jeff Turco. He's fantastic. He fights for us better than anybody. I mean, we had Bob DeLeo, who was fantastic, and he did a great job for us always, for years. And Jeff stepped right into those shoes, and he's doing fantastic. So whatever's out there, Jeff will be aggressive and try to get as much as he can for us.
Okay, well, thanks. So with us today, again, remind you, is Gus Martucci. He's a member of the school board here in Winthrop. You grew up, you mentioned growing up in the town, a lot of family. Maybe you could just describe your own personal experience with the school system, how you thought it worked for you and other members of your family?
Yeah, myself, my two sisters, my brother, we all went to the schools here, and we had just a great experience that we all had. We all went further on to do with things that we wanted to do.
Right.
We got the education that we wanted, and my sister she went to Salem State. She's now a teacher here, has been a teacher here for 35 years.
Here in town, yep.
In town. She just retired this year. My other sister she's a local hairdresser. She owns her own shop in town.
Right.
My brother works with me at my business.
Which you have a company.
We have several different companies that we operate, and we're doing the schools treat us very, very well here.
Are you hearing from either your own family members or whoever else you hear from in town how the school feels, sort of trend-wise? I mean, does it feel like it's getting better, the teaching's getting any better, any worse, or any kind of major concerns or major plaudits, I suppose, for what you understand to be going on in the schools these days?
I don't hear any concerns at all from any of the parents that I talk to. Since I've been in school, I never heard any parents saying the schools are terrible. When I got out of school and then started my family, and then my kids went to the school, never had a problem. When I got on the school committee, never heard anything disparaging about the schools at all, ever.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I know the other schools around have, look at in Revere, for instance, I know we hear some problems going on in some of their schools, but that, as far as you can see, is
We don't have that.
not what's going on here.
That's not happening yet, no.
Yeah, okay. Okay, and maybe again, it brings me back to the question then of, if things are so good, I guess, in so many ways, how hard does that make the battle for the overall question?
I understand, but you have to understand that it's money. Everything's money, and it's unfortunate, really, but that's the way it is. Yeah. I mean, you got to turn the lights on. You got to have heat. You got to have. We now have all these buildings are air conditioned.
Right.
So these bills go up. Right. You need custodians. You need the teachers. You need all the staffing.
Right.
And everything. And they have to have. They need increases too. They're just like ours.
Yeah.
Their home bills go up too. So we understand. So I understand things are very good here. The school department, I'm just like I said, there is nothing better. You will not get a better education. But again, it's money.
Yeah.
And every year, the prices go up.
Right, right.
Now, for instance, I'll just give you, I was talking to Jim Lettieri the other day about the fire
The
station.
town council president.
Yeah, about the fire station. Every year that goes by that we don't build the fire station, that cost goes up $1 million
Yeah.
to build that fire station.
Okay,
So it's like $100,000 a month.
right,
So every month that goes by, every year that goes by, everything increases.
right.
And over the last 4 years, things have increased really exponentially. So we have to get a little bit more money for the schools to make sure that we can have the best education for our kids, provide the best school system we can for the kids in the town.
Well, Gus Martucci, thank you for coming by. Again, the vote, it looks like the date hasn't been set, but probably sometime in March, the townspeople will again be asked to think about supporting the school department at a level beyond what they've been doing heretofore. Thank you very much for taking the time.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.